It was supposed to be just another ordinary day inside one of the most luxurious restaurants in the city, where the wealthy came to flaunt their power. But when a billionaire's credit card was suddenly declined in front of everyone, the entire room fell silent. Whispers spread like wildfire, eyes turned cold, and judgment filled the air. Yet in the midst of all the ridicule, it wasn't another millionaire, a business partner, or even the manager who stepped in to change everything. It was a little black girl, someone society often overlooked. What she did next not only shocked the entire room but left a mark no amount of money could ever buy. The restaurant was a palace of glass and gold, its chandeliers sparkling like captured stars. Every table was filled with the city's elite, executives, celebrities, and heirs who thought wealth gave them status beyond question. Among them was Edward Langston, a billionaire known for his vast empire of luxury resorts. To the world, he was untouchable. Dripping in diamonds, surrounded by influence, always the center of attention. But life has a way of humbling even the most powerful. That night, as Edward finished a grand dinner with several investors, the waiter approached. Discreetly with a troubled look, he whispered something about the card machine, then held out the sleek black card that had been declined. At first, Edward chuckled, brushing it off as a technical glitch. But when a second and third attempt failed, the laughter in the room shifted. Investors glanced at one another, their confidence cracking. The whispers turned sharper, mocking, cruel, unforgiving. It didn't matter that Edward still owned skyscrapers and resorts. In that moment, stripped of the illusion of endless wealth, he became vulnerable. In the world of the rich, perception was everything, and perception now painted him as a man whose fortune was slipping through his fingers. Yet the most piercing eyes in the room didn't belong to a rival or an investor. They belonged to a little girl, sitting quietly at a corner table with her mother, who worked as a server. Her name was Maya, no older than 8, with braids tied neatly and a schoolbook still open on her lap. Maya had grown up watching her mother work endless shifts in places like this, cleaning after people who barely acknowledged her existence. She knew the way the rich laughed at workers, the way her mother was often ignored, sometimes even insulted. But she also learned something more profound, that her mother carried dignity no paycheck could measure. As Edward sat frozen, his pride unraveling before an audience that thrived on scandal, Maya's small heart swelled with something others in the room had forgotten: compassion. The tension in the restaurant thickened. Investors leaned back in their chairs, smirking. A few even reached for their phones, ready to capture the fall of a billionaire in real time. The waiter's hands trembled as he explained the decline again, this time louder, his words echoing. In the silence, Edward's face burned. His empire was secure, but that didn't matter here. To this audience, image was everything, and right now his image was crumbling. That's when Maya stood up. Her chair screeched lightly across the marble floor, drawing curious glances. For a child, she had a presence that silenced even the cruelest laughter. Slowly, she walked toward the table where Edward sat, her small hands clutching a crumpled dollar bill and some coins she had been saving for weeks. Money she had planned to use for a school project. The crowd sneered. Some laughed out loud. What could a child possibly do? Someone whispered with disdain. But Maya didn't flinch. She reached Edward's table, placed her tiny savings beside his untouched glass of wine, and looked him straight in the eye. The room fell still again, not out of respect, but out of disbelief. For Edward, it was as if time froze. Here was a little girl, someone who had nothing compared to the billions he owned, offering him everything she had without hesitation. Saw no mockery in her gaze, only innocence, only kindness. The cruelty of the room sharpened, but not at Maya. Instead, whispers began to turn toward the investors themselves. They had mocked a man for a failing card, but what had they offered in return? Nothing. And now, in front of them, a child had revealed the smallness of their souls. But beneath that silence was another truth, one that Maya herself embodied. She had seen her mother humiliated countless times. She had watched society treat people like her as if they were invisible, yet in this moment she refused to let another human being face the same cruelty, no matter how rich or powerful he was. For Edward, it was humbling beyond measure. He, who had dined with presidents and kings, was being rescued, not by another billionaire, not by a banker or lawyer, but by a little black girl society often ignored. And though Maya didn't have the words to explain it, her actions spoke a truth that reverberated across the room. Dignity and kindness aren't measured by wealth. The investors shifted uncomfortably, their smugness evaporating. The silence was so sharp it cut deeper than the earlier laughter. Everyone waited to see what Edward would do. Whether he would accept the girl's offering or dismiss her like so many others in her position had been rejected before. Edward's hands trembled as he picked up the worn dollar bill and coins. His eyes blurred, not from shame alone, but from something he hadn't felt in years: humility. The truth hit him with force. He had spent his life building towers of glass, oceans of wealth. And yet, here was a child who, with her simple act, had shown him what true richness meant. Not gold, not cards, not prestige, just the courage to care when others turned away. Edward rose from his chair, his voice breaking as he thanked Maya. But before he could say more, Maya quietly returned to her mother's side, her book still waiting on the table. She hadn't done it for recognition. She hadn't done it for applause. She had done what she believed was right. The investors, now stripped of their arrogance, glanced at one another with unease. For in that moment, they were exposed, not by Edward's failed card, but by the purity of a child's heart. Word of the incident spread quickly beyond the walls of that restaurant. By morning, headlines painted the picture: "Billionaire humbled by little girl's kindness." Some mocked Edward, but far more focused on Maya, the girl who dared to do what no adult dared to. For Edward, the experience was life-changing. He sought out Maya and her mother, not to repay them with grand gestures or publicity, but to listen and learn from them. He visited the neighborhoods where society's wealth seldom ventured. He saw the struggles Maya's mother endured, the sacrifices she made for her daughter's education, and the systemic barriers they faced. Edward had lived in a world where money solved every problem. But here, he discovered issues money had never been used to solve, because those with wealth had never cared to. So, quietly, Edward began to change. Scholarships appeared for children like Maya. Funding flowed into schools in forgotten neighborhoods. And though Edward never boasted about it, those who knew him whispered that his empire had shifted, from building hotels to building hope. But the most potent impact wasn't Edward's transformation. It was the reminder Maya gave to everyone who heard the story, that sometimes the smallest among us carries the greatest strength. That compassion, when shown in the face of cruelty, has the power to strip away pride and reveal truth. And perhaps most importantly, that racism and inequality don't always show up in shouts or slurs. Sometimes they live in the way society chooses who to mock, who to ignore, and who to value. Maya's act disrupted that narrative. She reminded a room full of power that dignity has no price tag. So the next time we witness injustice, the next time we see someone humiliated or overlooked, will we stay silent like the investors, or will we dare to step forward no matter how small our gesture may seem? Because sometimes the unthinkable isn't just about what's done. It's about who dares to do it.